Hello, and welcome to this review of the Pennyroyal Green historical romance book series by Julie Ann Long. I'm Olivia, your favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot, and you're watching Random Olive Reads. First up is The Perils of Pleasure. In this one, Colin Eversey is a handsome, charming rogue who is about to hang for a murder he did not commit. At the last minute, he's saved from the gallows from a mercenary, Madeline Greenway, who doesn't know who's responsible for Colin's rescue. With Madeline being nearly killed and a price on Colin's head, these two are stealthily trying to unravel the mystery of Colin's missing witness and his savior. We get elements of a road trip adventure, even though we're mostly still in London, as Colin and Madeline investigate various leads and clues. Of course, the heightened danger and forced proximity lead to Colin and Madeline developing a strong connection as they slowly start to trust each other. We also get glimpses of other points of view from other members of the Eversey family and their rivals, the Redmonds. It'll be interesting to see how these two families interconnect throughout the rest of the series. Like No Other Lover is book 2 of the series, we switch over to the Redmond family here. Straight-laced insect researcher Miles pretty much loses his head and starts composing poetry the moment he sets eyes on Cynthia at a ball. Unfortunately, he overhears her calling him dour and boring, so he decides that he hates her now. Except he doesn't, and he's absurdly attracted to her. When Cynthia gets invited to his home by his sister for a house party after some sort of scandal, he tries to avoid her but fails miserably. Cynthia has no family, no money, no prospects, and a dwindling reputation, so this house party is her only chance to find a husband. Except that Miles is being overly critical of her methods, even while he's supposed to be courting another young lady that will help him fund his future expedition. These two bicker and argue and somehow cannot keep their hands off each other. And you'd think it was just lust driving them, but they do actually seem to understand the other person better than anyone else in the world, making it even more heartbreaking that they really aren't a suitable match for each other. Since The Surrender is book 3 of the series, and we flip back to the Eversey family here. Former Captain Chase Eversey is all sorts of aimless after being injured in the war and returning to his family home. So much so that his family has basically banished him to London on a task and to kind of try to find some purpose. On his first day back in London, he is summoned by a mysterious note to a not so popular museum. Rosalind is the widow of his commanding officer in the army and his one shameful secret of indiscreet behavior. He very much wants to avoid her, but it seems like she needs his help. Rosalind is concerned about her sister, who was arrested for theft and then has disappeared from prison without a trace. She needs Chase's help to discover what happened to her. While he tries to refuse at first, he eventually gives in, and then they need to team up to follow the trail of clues. The mystery plot of the story was super interesting to uncover, plus, we get to see the ever so stoic Chase slowly let down his guard and give in to his feelings for Rosalind. I Kissed an Earl is book 4 of the series. Violet Redmond is the outgoing, fiery, but coddled daughter of a gentleman who's bored of society and she's wishing for adventure. She meets the ship captain turned Earl Flint at a ball and is quickly intrigued by him, even if a bit disapproving. However, upon conversation with Flint and his first mate, she believes that her own missing brother may also be the dangerous pirate that they're charged with capturing. So Violet does the rash and reckless thing and stows herself onto their ship and hoping to save her brother, except that she does not actually have a plan. Flint is irritated and angry to find Violet aboard and threatens to toss her overboard, but is equally intrigued by her and may even believe her speculation about her brother's involvement. However, he's absolute in his determination to carry out his orders to capture the pirate, despite his growing feelings for Violet. The romance here was definitely a slow build, with Violet constantly being intimidated by Flint's brutish behavior, and then all sorts of action adventure that you would expect on a ship on the high seas. What I Did for a Duke is book 5 of the series. Serious and stern Duke Alex catches Ian Eversey in the bed with his fiancée, so he decides to take his revenge by seducing and then planning to abandon Ian's younger sister, Genevieve. Except Genevieve is both too clever and too preoccupied with her own heartbreak to really fall for it. She spent the past several years in love with her good friend Harry, who she was hoping would propose during a house party, except that guy tells her that he's going to propose to somebody else. She puts up a calm facade, but is pretty much heartbroken. When Alex shows up at the party, uh, Genevieve's mother kind of pushes them together, and Genevieve goes along with it, even though she's not really interested. Until they actually start talking to each other and getting to know each other and realize that it's nice to talk to someone at the same intellectual level. And while Genevieve never becomes a victim to Alex's revenge, she does end up attracted to him and then conflicted about her feelings. Alex is also realizing that he's his own victim by falling in love with Genevieve while she's still in love with somebody else. This was a huge muddle, but very entertaining to read. How the Marquess Was Won is book 6 of the series. This one is another angsty heartbreaker in the Pennyroyal Green series. We start off with a Marquess who has been shot, stumbling his way into the pub for help, and then we go backwards in time 6 weeks to find out what happened to him. Jules is known as the Lord of Ice by reputation and known for both his command of emotion and his callousness with feelings. He's in Pennyroyal Green for the Redmond house party, where he's supposed to be courting the family niece Lisbeth so that he can secure the last bit of his lost property in her dowry. Except he also meets schoolteacher Phoebe, who's been invited to the house party as Lisbeth's companion, and he's much more intrigued and entertained by her. They talk and banter and flirt and know that there's no future for them, but still, Jules becomes more open and communicative when he's with Phoebe, and she gets the opportunity to use her wit and intellect and be appreciated for it. Despite the strength of their attraction and clearly much more, she refuses his offer to be his mistress, both hurting his pride and his heart. And while they both try very hard to forget each other, it's not very successful. A Notorious Countess Confesses is book 7 of the series. This one is a romance between a scandalous widowed countess and the country village vicar. Evie has recently moved to Pennyroyal Green after the death of her husband, and she hopes to build a new, quiet life for herself. Except that her reputation as a former actress and courtesan has followed her and caused the townsfolk to shun her without getting to know her. She pleads her case with the handsome, well liked vicar Adam, who is an Eversey cousin, in hopes that he will introduce her to the ladies of the town. Adam is struggling with way too much adoration by the young women of the town, along with his unwanted feelings of desire for Evie. He's basically a poor sad sap who's confused about his emotions. But Evie is open and honest and vulnerable about around Adam, and he sees that she's truly a good person in need of support and community. I enjoyed seeing their relationship develop and seeing how tough Evie was in the face of all the gossip surrounding her. It Happened One Midnight is book 8 of the series. Jonathan is the youngest Redmond son, and he's told by his father that he needs to marry appropriately within the year to keep his allowance. Except that Jonathan has no intention of getting married, and he's more interested in his newfound investments. When he meets Thomasina, he believes that he's immune to her charms and mostly irritated by her antics. Except we soon learn that Tommy has a soft heart and secretly rescuing children from untenable situations. The equally soft hearted Jonathan gets caught up in the scheme, and these two oh so slowly fall in love. We've got a few more of Tommy's secrets to uncover along the way, and then we get to see Jonathan grow a backbone and some principle. This one is another excellent addition to the series. Between the Devil and Ian Eversey is book 9 of the series. We have attention seeking and flirtatious Tansy, now the ward of a duke, and recently arrived in England to find a suitable husband after the death of her parents. While staying with the Eversey family, everyone is careful to avoid the mention of a roguish Ian, presumably to avoid the corruption of the young and innocent Tansy. Except that Tansy is a relentless flirt with all the other men in the village, watching them fawn all over her, and she is suddenly awestruck and awkward around Ian. He's both annoyed and entertained by her antics and sees right through them. He's trying to avoid falling prey, or at least pretending to avoid falling prey to her wiles. Both Ian and Tansy are a little bit shallow and a little bit vain, and it's hard to empathize with them, but we slowly find that Ian is troubled by his experience from the war, and Tansy is just alone and lonely in the world with the death of all of her family members. Somehow, in seeing through the other person, Ian and Tansy are the only people to actually see each other as they are. It started with a scandal is book 10 of the series. Lord Philippe Levet is recuperating from a brigand attack and in a rented house in the country where the servants who came with the house can't seem to find any work ethic. He hires a new housekeeper, Elise, who had to leave her position as a school teacher at the local girls' school. The gruff Levet gives her a 2-week trial run to see if she can survive the job. Elise doesn't really have much choice since she doesn't have anywhere else to go with her 6-year-old son. She puts on her school teacher demeanor and puts the rest of the servants to work. Along the way, she and Philippe learn to deal with each other more amicably and realize that they're both hurt and injured and lashing out. And although Philippe should really be working on courting an old family friend with a dowry, he's increasingly intrigued by his outspoken, bold, and caring housekeeper. Elise is trying her best to resist, knowing that she's not a suitable match for the lord of the house, but his care and concern for her and her son breaks down a lot of those walls. And finally, we have The Legend of Lion Redman, which is book 11 of the series. After a 10-book lead up with hints about the tortured romance between Lion Redman and Olivia Eversey, we finally learn what happened all those years ago and what happens in present day as Olivia is about to marry another man. Clearly, we have the element of forbidden romance between members of these rival families, which leads to a secret courtship that ends in heartbreak for everyone. While Lion had fled the country and gone missing for 5 years, Olivia has been pursued by many suitors to no avail until one day she accepts the proposal of one of them. As she is preparing for her wedding to a man that she likes but does not love, she's assaulted by memories of her time with Lion and also wondering where in the world he is. We've got an epic setup here for him to himself in her life and also show her what he's been doing all this time. We get all sorts of juicy heartbreak and intrigue and redemption and forgiveness in this book, and it tied everything up for this whole series very nicely. So, overall, this is an epic series that encompasses two rival families in the same country village. Now, personally, I was a little intimidated by having an 11-book series to get through, but the payoff is worth it when you read it in order. We get to see both families in sort of alternating books, Eversey and a Redman, and then Eversey and a Redman, plus some auxiliary characters that are tied to those families along the way. I enjoyed reading the series in order, especially as we see some overlapping characters, but I think the plots of most of the books take place in isolation and can be enjoyed as standalone. We do get to see the story and legend of the romance between Lion and Olivia develop over the first 10 books, with very strong hints along the way. It makes the final book way more satisfying if you've seen their backstory from other characters beforehand. Overall, this is the type of series with soap opera dramatics and qualities that I would love to see turned into a TV series. For all the hype that this many book series gets, it's well worth it, and I highly recommend it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully, I've encouraged you to pick up this series. Links to all of these books are in the description box. Like and subscribe to get updates, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive.